I did. Oh, of course. And that was good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon from Lancaster and from the lovely Story Institute. It's a lovely sunny afternoon. Welcome to this Spotlight Talk brought to you by Light Up the North Network. We've got an hour this afternoon to talk about illuminating places, and I'll introduce you to the panel very shortly. Just for those of you that might not know, Light Up the North is a network of light festivals across the northern region, Lancaster being one of them. And we all work together to deliver amazing free light art festivals that have really quality, exciting work, but also we're really passionate about developing opportunities for artists to experiment, to develop new work, and for emerging artists to also develop careers in the light art sector. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Carolyn Primett. I head up the arts service at Blackpool Council. So I work in the city of light, really. Sure, some of you have been to Blackpool. If you haven't, we have the world famous, that's what we claim, world famous Blackpool Illumination. And we're not just a one-trick pony or a one-trick donkey. We do lots of things with light. We have an amazing light factory called Lightworks, where we manufacture a whole range of light works, and the Blackpool Illuminations have been going for nearly 150 years. 2029 will be our 150th anniversary. But what we've also been developing for over 10 years now is a contemporary light art festival called Liverpool. And along with that, as part of my work in Blackpool, the Grundy Art Gallery is part of my team, and we've been developing a contemporary light art collection, and we do some fabulous exhibitions, so you'll have to come and have a look, because we've got Jason Wilshire Mills at the moment. Anyway, that's enough about me. I'm going to do very quick introductions to the panel, and we're going to have to pass the mic up and down as we speak, so just please bear with us. I do feel a bit Claudia Winkleman. It's like, yeah, so anyway, of the art world. I'm very pleased to welcome the panel, who are giving their time generously, who have a wealth of knowledge working in the world of light art and with communities. So we have Gail Faragher, who's academic researcher, has a background in community engagement, so welcome, Gail. We have Anna West, artist, creative from I Don't Love You Anymore, who's got a good long-term relationship with Light Up Lancaster and got a particular installation here this time, which you must go and see. Bota, cultural leader, I would say, really important cultural leader in this region, and consultant, who again has worked as a producer with Light, and I had the pleasure of working with as our Light Up the North strategic lead, who got us into shape. So in terms of our strategic heads on. And then Laura Jamieson, colleague from Blackpool, who works as co-director of LeftCoast, our Creative People and Places programme. And Laura is also an artist as well, practicing artist. So we were just going to start talking about, I suppose, yeah, the important, the special, what is it special, what's special about light festivals in terms of illuminating place and in terms of creating place. and people having that sense and connecting to where they live or where they're visiting. So I'm going to pass over to Gail.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. Thank you very much. It's given me a good chance to talk about the research and the practice. I think the special thing for me, and I'm sorry if this sounds really kind of commonsensical, is the character of the dark. Because without the dark, that symbolic light that people either carry with them or they present on the evening cannot stand out. And what the darkness does is sort of obscure the everyday kind of association with the systems that we're all part of. And it's part of our 24 hours when, you know, we can start to play. So for me, partly it's about the ability for misrule in this time and to play, but it's also to, you know, to be social. So my perspective on light festivals comes from research that I did, which was, I was a practitioner. I ran a community arts project for about 20 years. And the biggest thing we did every year was a lantern parade, a community lantern parade. And it was a wonderful phenomenon. We were just chatting to Maria before about memories from things that happened. So my role really was to direct and co-produce. However, I left that role and became a researcher, at which point co-production of that festival took on a completely new dimension. And rather than being the kind of project manager, creative producer, director role, which is sort of all in a one-person organisation, I then became part of a group of people. There was an equity there in making decisions, which was really important for what happened in the 2 years that I was researching it rather than directing it. So the photograph on the right-hand side is of a peacock. It was a gift to the community. It was a physical bronze mid-19th century sculpture by an artist called Gertrude Hermes, and it was lost. It got moved. It got moved from the place where it was designed for, which was a small housing estate called Odsal in Salford, right next to opposite Salford Quays, the old Odsal, Salford docks. And people just wanted to celebrate it. Loads of memories about it. It was a really culturally sort of significant year when the peacock arrived back in the community, and everybody wanted to talk about how they remembered it and how much a part of their lives it had been, especially if you went to a particular school where the peacock was outside, and what you did with the peacock. You met for a date, you met for a fight, you climbed on it, you got detention for it, you had to wash it sometimes if you if you misbehaved. So this became the symbol for one of the lantern parades. Every year there was a theme to a lantern parade, and they were always place-based. So coming back to the question, the original question is what's special about it? For me, it's how sort of unique they can be tied to place, because they can be completely and utterly inspired by place and the memories of place and the experience of place that people have. So that the festivals themselves can be drawn on that, but then they can also reinforce and continue people's connections to place, and talk about that more in the kind of third section that we're going to talk about continuity and sustainability. The other image there is a sort of representation of the research that I did, which I didn't realise at the time at the outset, was that there is this sort of framework. I mean, there's a framework to all festivals anyway, but for the Community Lantern Festival, there's a framework of when things happen and how and why they happen. And there were 4 main stages, and you might think, oh, that sounds a bit obvious, but actually it was quite important. Nobody'd ever written about it before. There is a sort of production stage, which starts at the very beginning. All the decisions are made, a lot of the decisions are made, but it all carries on right through to the festival. There's also a thematic stage, where people decide what the theme is going to be that year and how that's drawn from place. Then there's a route making phase, which is where are we going to walk and why is that important this year? Which bits of the estate do we cover? Where are we going to illuminate? Where are the important nodes in place that we need to illuminate? And then finally the event itself. So that kind of explains that. And then there's another image as well. I don't know whether we can turn to the next image, Carolyn. Thanks. Oh no, that's not. Okay, no problem. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and I'll finish in about a minute, is one of the other festival themes, which was all again drawn on place when the residents were in the period when we were coming up with a theme. The residents were talking about some of the assets in the community, the built assets in the community that they didn't really relate to or could access, that had received significant investment. For example, Salford Quays and the various kind of cultural places that you can go on there, and even Odsal Hall, which did have, Odsal Hall is like a 700-year-old mansion house in Odsal, and even that did seem to be quite not, it was not the everyday place that you went for a cup of tea, basically, to meet people and say hi. So they decided that they wanted to celebrate the buildings. So we literally made lanterns of the schools, the churches, the community hubs, somebody's allotment shed, and we so you couldn't get more sort of representative of the importance of place to the people in that light festival. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there because.
Thank you. So, yep, I'm Anna. I'm an artist, and I think the reason I find light festivals so special is because they allow an audience, or they allow people from their city to re-engage with their city in a sort of brand new way, or allows us as artists to kind of make strange a city. So we look at our work a lot of the time as kind of co-creation between us and between the participants, between us and the people in the city. So, for example, the work that we've just presented here for the first time is called By the Light of Our Losses, in which we've sent out a call out in which people can they can submit losses to us, anything they've lost. That could be a really small thing, or it could be a big ephemeral thing. And we write each loss on a light bulb, and then we've been going around and hiding those light bulbs around the city, and then we've created a map in which people can search for their loss. And also in a theatre space in Lancaster, there's a large collection of them, so you can go and walk around and you can find your loss. And something that we're finding there is that people are spending a lot of time with the piece, and they're talking about their loss with each other. I think we were a little bit worried that it could be quite heavy, but actually the space itself has worked really well to allow people to have a space to discuss loss, and that's been really interesting to see, and a really, really positive experience to see as well, that they're able to connect with their city, and they're able to connect with other participants as well, so other people in their city that maybe they haven't met before, or could be a neighbour, or could be a friend, but still they're having that space for connection, which is also something we noticed in the piece that we presented here the year before as well, which was a piece where we had participants come in and give us a sentence about how they connected to the city, which is just here actually, and that got put on top of a light box, so their name and a sentence about their connection to the city, and we gave out heart rate monitors, so they were all sending us their live heart rate, so their boxes were flashing with their live heart rate, but actually the interesting thing was that we got people coming up to us and saying, oh, someone found my box actually the other day, and they contacted me, and I haven't seen them in 10 years. And out of the blue, they said, "Oh, I saw your box in Lancaster. Let's connect again." So we see, I think, when we watch people interact with the artworks, we're seeing that there is a real need to have these artworks in the city, and also to have people have a ground for reconnection again. And I think that is what is so special about these festivals, is that they allow for that reconnection, whether that's with a place or whether that's with the other people that you live with and live around. So yeah, I'll pass this on.
Thanks, Anna. So my reference points are that I've brought to this conversation a couple. One is working in Salisbury, where I was honoured to work for a number of years. And we worked with Devises Outdoor Celebratory Arts there to create a moment of celebration around their chalk course. There are 8 chalk courses across the whole of Wiltshire. And we worked with an amazing company called Paboom, who originate not far from here, who are brilliant at storytelling, brilliant at lantern making, brilliant at celebrating. And we collaborated with the Devises community and that organisation that's run lantern festivals for decades and decades and decades, at creating a real moment where that procession walked through the rural landscape up to this chalk course. It's the only one that's on a slope shallow enough for you to stand on with safety. All the other ones are a bit vertiginous. And those lanterns filled out the shape of the horse in a way that you could read from far away. And there was a moment of celebration with sound intervention and other partners as well as part of that. And so this was, for us, a real powerful moment in the landscape, in a very rural landscape, and a little bit, I think 10 miles along the ridge. The Alton Barns horse was also illuminated that night, working together with communities. And what I suppose I particularly love about that is that there were so many touch points in enabling that to happen, from the custodians of the land, from the people that look after the horse, you know, from that long tradition of working with communities and lanterns, and then Paboom coming in to that amazing landscape and bringing their special work that you can see here on the left, and really creating something unforgettable for a moment. And there's something, the image on the right is of Corridor of Light, which was a festival of light that ran in Manchester in 2021. It happened for one moment, just that moment. Very different kind of landscape, very urban landscape, very bright light landscape. But nevertheless, there's something fundamental, I think, that links, for me, as you've talked, Gail, about, you know, that you've talked about misrule. I absolutely love that example. I also think about this sense of, we've always sat around fires, haven't we? We've always been drawn to that. It's like a hearth, actually, that we're drawn to, a space that we're used to listening to stories in. And I think light festivals have that quite fundamental pull in that dark space as well, which feels a quite protective environment in a dark space, in a way. You know, it's something that feels maybe quite safe, although sometimes we might not always be as safe as we think when we get into those spaces. This was a very, very bright, light landscape. Oxford Road, it's a very diverse landscape, if you know Manchester, from the hospital down to the centre of the city. And I suppose I want to pay tribute, actually, to work that can sing in a variety of spaces and be meaningful for lots of different people. And here I'm citing recovery poems, which Emergency Exit Arts created with the words of Deanna Rogers and Robert Montgomery. And it was that moment in the pandemic where we said, at what point do we fall into each other's arms and dance again? We're vulnerable in this first light, but rising steady now, dancing in the new music. This was such a common hunger at the time as we began to emerge at that moment. And this piece travelled across our landscape. You know, Hume writers performed in front of it. The Sunday Boys, which is an LGBTQ plus choir in Manchester, set the text with Anne Appleby and sang the music. People that worked in the hospital brought their poetry into this piece. It visited local schools. It moved through the landscape. It ended up outside where the Nightingale Hospital had been in Manchester, and where Walk the Plank had their very urban fire garden. And actually, it was a hugely versatile piece. And I think that's a challenge for light festivals, is to make something feel very deep and powerful and personal in a variety of landscapes. And I think, for me, that piece enabled us to achieve that. So I'm going to stop there because I think I've talked a bit too long. I shall pass on to you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. I think I should have an image as well. Perhaps not that one. That one. There we go. Thank you. That one. That one. So I'm from LeftCoast. I'm artistic director of LeftCoast, and so we're a socially engaged arts company. So we're not a light work arts organisation. And I think for us, the purpose of a light festival is we have an amazing light fabrication facility in Blackpool, and it's how we engage with that and how we engage with our residents who feel that there's not things don't connect for them in the town. So there's a lot of things for the tourists, but the residents don't necessarily feel that's for them. And how do we use light to connect with that fabric of place and community? And the other thing to mention is that we use Liverpool as a way of bringing part of our program to the fore. We don't set out to make a light artwork necessarily. It tends to be part of a much longer process, and an opportunity arises. So I was going to talk about this example of a project. So this is from Liverpool last year, and this is a project that is a really good example of sort of the role of light festivals in our program. So this is a project that's been going on for a couple of years. We had an artist in residence in one of our neighbourhoods, and she was exploring with the residents the right to happiness, because it had come up in conversations that people kind of felt they didn't necessarily have a right to happiness. There was a lot of kind of almost a right to exist just about, but not necessarily the right to happiness. So we'd had lots of conversations, and we had a group of women that had come together to discuss this. So this had come out in all sorts of ways. We'd made headdresses, we'd taken photographs of ourselves in various different locations around Blackpool, and then we started to make ice cream as a kind of symbol of happiness in many ways, but also as a Trojan horse to talk about food poverty and what life is like in Blackpool. And also in a town like Blackpool that can be quite extractive, these women wanted to talk about alternative economies or taking that tourist pound and bringing it back to the neighbourhoods of Blackpool. So we made ice cream, and we made it with things that we grew. So we made apple ice cream, and we made rhubarb ice cream, and we made all sorts of different things from what we could make with our own hands. And so when we were talking to Liverpool, this was the project that kind of stood out for me. I was like, well, actually, we've been making ice cream, we've been talking to people, we've been taking it to places. Let's make an illuminated ice cream cart and take it to Liverpool and use it to discuss what it means to live in a place like Blackpool in quite a joyful way, but also as a Trojan horse, to talk about other things that these women wanted to talk about. So we took our Blackpool-grown apple ice cream into Liverpool, and we took it into various places. This is outside the Grundy Art Gallery, and we used it to talk about the fabric of the place. We used it to talk about where they live and what that means to them, and yeah, so it really is kind of for us working with a light festival. It's almost not about the light necessarily, but it comes back to what you were saying about playing in the dark, because a lot of these women don't come into the town centre, especially not at night. So it was a reason to do that. But then, and I'll come on to it at another point, it's what comes after that is quite interesting as well. But I think I'll leave that there.
Yes.
So I was going to say we would welcome all your contributions, but we're going to leave that to sort of slightly towards the end, with the mic going up and down, as it were. I forgot to say, actually, I'm a long-term Lancaster resident, so I'm very proud of Live Lancaster. I love celebrating my city, and I love it that all my friends and family want to come and visit and stay with us, not because they want to see us, but actually because they want to see Light Up Lancaster, and that my grown-up kids that have left town also want to come back to town because they just love showing their friends Light Up Lancaster. But I just wanted to go on and move on to, obviously we're talking about place and that sense of place, but I just wanted us to kind of explore those levels of taking part and what that can mean, but also that whole thing that we were talking about meaningful artworks. How do we get the balance right on that in terms of spectacle? And also, I suppose, working in a place like Blackpool, the fundamentals of the illuminations was to get the tourists to stay. It's an absolutely economic, fundamental thing to the town, the illuminations, to keep the town on, as it were, through the autumn period. And it's no mean feat because, you know, we've got the Irish Sea and a promenade, and they're up there permanently for several months. So it is quite an amazing feat. And of course, there's lots of things you can do with sort of limited light festivals of a couple of nights, as it were. And I don't think, I mean, the public don't probably realise the amount of work that goes in by all those people behind the scenes for what is a 2 or 3 night festival. But anyway, I'll pass over to my panel. But I was also just going to say, being a Lancaster resident, I will take the credit for the local Lancaster Kayak Club now becoming the biggest fans of Light Up Lancaster, because I happen to have a family member in that kayak club. But on Thursday night, there were 21 members of that club, ages 75 to 8-year-olds, just so delighted to go up and down the canal with all their fairy lights. And to be honest, probably be quite annoying in front of the Water Witch installation. But I know some of those don't actually engage with cultural things, projects. And now they are the biggest advocates for the festival. So I think, again, that's one of the things of taking part in the way you want to celebrate your town or your city. So I wanted to just kind of get you to reflect on that sort of taking part, how communities engage, I suppose, that whole thing of pride and learning new skills maybe. So I'll pass it over to Gail.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, well, obviously with the medium of making lanterns, making light in that way, it's incredibly participatory. You couldn't do it without participation. So people literally making a 3D object, illuminated object, which in some way represents either some aspect of their life or the values that are being thought about for that particular festival, or some other theme. So the 2 festivals that I looked at, so one in Odsal, Salford, and the other one was in Sharrow, in Sheffield. I don't know whether you know that community there. And the amazing thing about the sort of practices and the participation was the materials that were used were exactly the same. A piece of willow length, and some masking tape. Really simple, and you can make the most amazing 3D shapes, and anyone can make them. You know, they're really accessible. So you can go from the kind of the wonkiest, sort of roughest looking thing, but when it's got illumination in it, it just becomes this beautiful object. Or you can go really finessed and create a really complex structure. I mean, I arrived at the Sharrow Festival one evening, and there was a group of people who were, putting the legs on a space dog. What was he called? Laika the space dog. They made Laika the space dog. So the materials are the same, and the techniques are the same as well, pretty much. But the approach to making can be very different. So in Odsal, things were templated, because it was predominantly with primary school. The participation was from primary schools. So we had templated shapes originating with square-based pyramids, because they used candles to begin with, and that is the one form of a light that lets you have a chimney, so they're not going to burn straight away. But in Sharrow, they didn't use, they used anything. Anybody brought anything in. There was no prescribed way of doing it or any template way of doing it. So it was totally unique. So people would start with an idea of making something, and sometimes they had a light, they just brought the light in with them. And like, for example, when I've just got this from the pound shop and I thought it'd make great eyes, and so built an object based on that. Some people just went with the willow, and then later on went, oh, I need some fairy lights on here. But there was an intricacy to the making and the illumination and the manner of illumination, which was really important to the participation. So I don't think we can forget that, really. And then the other thing about participation and the making of that is that when people switch the light on, even if it's in the daytime, if it's in a space like this where everyone's making, there's this shush that always happens. Everyone just kind of goes quiet, and you know, you're like, oh, you know. And I've heard that in so many different places. Like you were just saying before about the profoundness of that light and the deep meaningful and the personalness. Is that a Trump word? The personal way that these things can, you know, affect us, be drawn from us, but also affect us as well, is just, it's really important, I think, for sort of self-expression and community and place expression.
Yeah, I was just reminded of the kayaking thing, because we were walking by the canal actually and saw the kayaks go past. And actually, this is a complete side note, but it's so nice to see that those types of things happen at light festivals as well, which is just a fantastic, yeah. I'll come. I'm on the kayak. Find me on the canal. But yeah, the fact that like a community can newly engage with a thing in their own way as well is beautiful. We were at Leeds Festival a few weeks ago, whenever that was, and we also saw a man who was completely decked out in this suit that was covered in lights, and he just takes it upon himself to join in the festival and walk around in this suit covered in lights, and he talks to people about his suit. And I just thought that is so nice that there are actually these opportunity, or that this festival provides an opportunity for people to live in their art craft and do their art craft, even if it's just a thing that's completely personal to them. It's not really a thing that the artists have had to really encourage. It's a thing that the festival itself encourages. I just think that's really gorgeous that people take it upon themselves to do that. But yeah, a note on how people engage in festivals. In our work, I suppose we are, actually it's similar to what you were saying about the simplicity. I think we're trying to provide people a very simple way to engage in art that actually feels big and meaningful, but it is very easy for them themselves to do. You know, all we've asked for this time, we just asked the question, what have you lost? And that was the only thing you had to do, is write to us and say, what have you lost? And sort of we do the hard part so that you can have a very big engagement in the art. I mean, that you are the art there, but we sort of do the intricacies so that the people don't have to. They just get to see their words lit up around their city. And in hearts as well, the boxes, again, we just ask what's your connection to Lancaster or other people in Lancaster, and you know, over 100 people applied to take part in it, and we do that difficult part for you. We give you the equipment so that you can come and you are the art. Your heartbeat is the art. So yeah, there's something really important about the simplicity of the engagement for people, so that they can just be the art, I suppose.
So interesting listening to this. I'm going to listen back to this conversation afterwards, because there's so much in it to think about. I think it's, so thinking about lantern festivals and those moments. A few years ago, I was doing some work in a town in Greater Manchester, and there was a challenge from that community saying, actually, there's nothing that really brings this community together anymore. And when I asked, well, when was the last time you felt that? It was a lantern celebration that they really felt in that place brought everybody together. So they're so important in that context. I think in the Oxford Road, thinking about that environment, it was a moment where the participants were broad. So Royal Northern College of Music students collaborated with May Wild to provide a window into their experience of the pandemic, but also into their rehearsal spaces from the street. So participation can take many forms, can't it? Actually, also the University of Manchester stepping up and offering out parts of their canvas for artists to dream in, and some of those spaces still being available now as a projection space, or a piece of neon that Tim Etchell's put onto a bridge that's since been used subsequently for neon as well. So the participants take many forms, and I think with lanterns, I think there's so many fingerprints literally on the work that goes out, and then thinking about the huge effort and the hundreds of people that are involved in creating the moment. We're all participants together, and it's it's a huge undertaking. So I suppose I see participation in that bigger sense of that huge common ground, that huge effort, right through to the kind of traffic management folk, you know, to the street people that keep the streets clean afterwards, to people that keep us safer. We're there. It's a huge undertaking when we think about what that collaboration is in actual fact, to bring people together. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think what I was going to say kind of ties into everything that's been said already, really. I mean, I think there's something about light festivals to bring out the uniqueness of a place and to look at those unexpected narratives. Everything that we do is co-created as a practice. That is our artistic practice, and as I said, we're not a light practice. But I think what it enables us to do is to platform some of the conversations that have been going on in the neighbourhoods, and to celebrate, but also really take ownership of spaces in a different way. I was going to talk briefly about, oh, well done, Carolyn. Great. Right, so that's the right side. A project, because again, it's just the importance to us of really long-term work, and it being a moment. So there's the ebbs and the flows of projects, and it's been a moment within that. And this was really important when you're looking at sort of diversity and placemaking through light. So this is a project we did in an area of Blackpool called Revo. It's on a very main artery into Blackpool, and it came at the end of a really, about 2 or 3 years working. We'd taken over a space. It's a place where there's quite a big disconnect between the communities as well as the communities in the town centre. So we've got a huge Romanian population here, next to a white British class sort of population, and there's sort of conflict between those two areas of the community. And this is sort of a site of an old pub in Blackpool that got knocked down, and we had taken it over as an alternative public square, as an unauthored space, if you like, in a place where there isn't a lot of space to bring people together. And over sort of 18 months, we'd built this alternative public square with the people there. We'd built terrazzo out of the rubble of the pub that's on the site. And as an example of using light to bring people together. So we've done all sorts of things in this space. You know, we'd started a choir, we'd had meals together, we'd done all sorts of things. But being part of Lightpool and bringing a light artwork to it, there was a real sense of pride, but a real sense of a reason to get together. So this is a piece of work. So we animated. We had a poet in residence who had been working alongside us with the residents, and he developed this poem about the right to grow. And this was animated illustration that went with the poem that people had drawn, and you could listen on headphones to the poem and watch the animations. But it was a starting block for other things as well. So it's a really I mean, if anyone knows Blackpool, we've got lots of people, you don't want to do anything there, you don't want to put something there. It's not on the main drag, it's not in the town centre. If we had taken this work to the town centre, people wouldn't have come, our residents wouldn't have come to it. This is, for a lot of people, the first experience of a artwork or a light artwork. And then we can signpost them into more of the Light Festival. But a lot of people had never heard of Lightpool. I mean, they don't go to the Illuminations, and it's like 5 streets back from the seafront. So yeah, it's that opportunity, and from this, and from people listening to each other's stories and bringing them together. It sounds really simplistic, but actually, why? You know, we actually brought the National Gallery to this space as well. Why would anybody take the time and the effort to put something so beautiful with amazing artists who are working together in this space? So it comes back to those dark spaces, physically dark spaces, but also, I mean, this is an area of regeneration for Blackpool, so it's a very contested space. But that's what it gave us, this opportunity and this amazing resource, and link our residents to what we have in Blackpool, which is this light making facility, and sort of democratise that a little bit and say it can go into our neighbourhoods. I think that's
a fun game.
Pass the mic. I'm just going to give you a little bit of, we're just going to talk about what next for a little while, 5-10 minutes. But then if you've got any questions or observations, after that we'll be throwing it open to the floor. And obviously we are online, so just to say that as well, because there might be some comments coming from further afield as well. So yeah, what next for light festivals? I mean, there has been a huge growth in this country, in the north, in terms of the light festivals. It's great because through the network we know lots of other people are wanting to develop different scales of festivals. There's a challenge in terms of the investment needed, you know, the costs that are going up with various things. You know, most of the light festivals that I work with obviously have investment from the Arts Council, which we're very grateful for. But again, there is this big growth, so it's how do we sort of nurture new festivals but continue to experiment and create new work, and I suppose wow the audiences, or that in-depth engagement. Again, you know, it's about what are those kind of range of commissions that we can do with artists to keep things fresh and exciting and new, I suppose. I'm lucky enough to have been to a few festivals in Europe, and it's quite breathtaking the number of people that, you know, come into those towns and cities to see those festivals, the infrastructure that's been developed. So what next? Just a couple of, I don't know, 2 or 3 points from people as I pass the mic down the line.
Thanks. Just 2 points for me. One is the continuity for the residents of those festivals nearby, and I think that's partially achieved by making sure that there's some element of co-production to whatever the work is that is co-produced. I've seen lots of different festivals, as I'm sure we all have if we've all been to different places, but I've seen that continuity come through this sort of, you know, material making that I've talked about. But I've also seen it in a community in Bridport, I don't know if anyone knows it, in Dorset, where everyone bought torches for £2 or £3 and walked down the street and threw the torches on the fireplace. There was nothing more or less profound to that experience than in other festivals where there'd been a significant process of making. So the important thing for me is the embodiment. You somehow represent, like you were saying about asking people, you know, for their ideas of loss or artifacts of loss. It's the same thing. It's at a different kind of scale, but it's some of that involvement. So you literally represent your existence in these profound moments. That's really important. And there was something else, but I'll pass it on.
What's next is always quite a hard question as an artist, I think, because we are often asked, what's your next thing and stuff like that, which is an exciting question to be asked. I love to be asked it, and we've always got a barrel of ideas. So that's really exciting, but also in the wake of, you know, Arts Council and funding cuts, it can be quite an anxious place to be as an artist, because actually I'm not sure the festivals always know what's next for them. What I really love about a hell of a lot of light festivals, and especially Light Up Lancaster, is that conversation is always so collaborative between the artist and the festival. It's something I like about being involved in festivals. Unlike large arts institutions, it feels like that relationship is nurtured and also is honest. And so what's next, I hope, is that those relationships continue. And actually, I wonder if light festivals, that energy around light festivals can be spread to other areas, can be spread to institutions as well, because those organic and honest conversations are so important, especially around funding and what's possible in future. It's really lovely that the artists can be included in that conversation, because it can be quite an anxious time to know whether your funding is coming or whether it isn't. But yeah, I suppose I hope that those relationships can continue and also spread around the rest of the arts institutions as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. What next? I think, I mean, the Arts Council has been extraordinary in investing in Light Up the North, for which huge thanks, and lots of light festivals. I think ideally festivals would be planning on a 3-year timescale in response to that question: who's not currently involved in this work? Who's in this neighbourhood? You know, how could we reach them? Those are long-term conversations rather than a conversation to have often at speed because funding is confirmed quite close in to the delivery of an event. I don't think people appreciate how astonishing it is what is delivered given those constraints at the moment in terms of lead-in times. And I think there continues to be a challenge around just the cost of staging work where you're gathering lots of people together in public space, in the dark, the cost, the safety, all the costs associated with that have escalated significantly in recent years. That puts a huge amount of extra pressure on the budget that's available as well. And probably I should stop there because there's more. I mean, new technology and what that might enable as well, and keeping abreast of that. Again, developing longer term relationships. If you knew that you had funding in 2 years' time, I know it's really hard in this context to be saying that, but it's really important. Then you can develop longer term partners with all kinds of organisations, which would be very exciting.
Thank you. I think that long-term planning is a really interesting conversation. Obviously, we sit slightly out of that because we're a CPP, so we can plan things in, which means that we can embed it into longer-term programmes. So we have the residents that we're already working with, but it's really difficult to work on the time frames of a year. I really don't know how you do it. Other things, sort of long-term, I think it's the responsiveness to place is really, really interesting. When you're making work. On the flip side of that, it makes it really difficult to tour work because it's site specific. So it's looking at kind of the methodologies around making that work rather than the work itself. And then the other question that we always are thinking about is the environmental impact of things. So within our practice, we try and look at permaculture principles of earth care, fair share, people care, so that we have a legacy for the work. So we're really considerate of what materials we use, and what happens to that afterwards. So a lot of times we can make things that have a purpose afterwards for our communities, but considering that at the beginning, I know there's, Carolyn can talk more about the illuminations and the considerations around environmental impact, but I think these moments, we don't have many moments anymore where we can bring people together to, look at place in a different way. We're really interested in folklore and developing new folklore for places, and this kind of light festivals do that job. So I think there's practice-wise, it's really interesting what could come next, but the constraints are challenging.
So I don't want to stop the panel from, we were talking in the cafe, and to be honest, we did this whole thing just organically talking in the cafe before this event. But we were talking about sustainability, and Light Up the North have done a lot of work on that. Certainly with Blackpool Illuminations, LED lights, they've really reduced their sort of electricity impact, if you sort of mean. And they are putting solar panels all over the factory as well. Actually, that's one thing they're moving towards. The other thing that we did touch on, certainly Laura and I were having a conversation, and again, I think it is particularly pertinent with certain festivals, and I feel it with Light Up Lancaster, is that obviously the artists are really important, the creatives, but it is that collaboration with the producers and the directors of those festivals, and having those sensitivities in the producer to bring. I produce as well, working with artists. It's what I love doing, although that's away from the day job of doing the paperwork, but to get the money in. But yeah, that how important that role is, I suppose. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking so we can open it to the floor, and anybody online who wants to make an observation or ask a question, or if they know what's next for light festivals. And I think, are we passing the microphone around for this? Or not? Or we're doing shout out? I'm going to repeat, right, yeah. Okay, I'm going to repeat. Anybody got a question? And I'm going to repeat it back to you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the ones on display at the moment. I mean, all of them are really beautiful, that one happens to be on display. So, what is like the on cost of having to display that every night? And what barrier is that to sort of
Okay, so we've got a question from the floor, which is an interesting one because we were talking about this, about members of the public not necessarily understanding what's involved in putting on projections, etc., the costs, all that kind of that stuff. I'm not sure we can give you a breakdown of the budget in detail, but we can give a general sense, I suppose, of what the overall costs would be. Could we do that, Laura, with the Revo project, or Maria's offering to help because all right, okay. I was going to say we've all done it. We've all managed the budgets, to be honest, and certainly Anna, you'll have been told you can't go above this certain budget. So, but this works. I mean, this was on what for 2-3 nights? 4 nights. Yep. Weather is a bit of a problem in terms of upping the costs. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, we cost for us as well because they're part of longer term programs. It's hard to extrapolate just the costs for this, and that is one of the beauties of partnering with sort of Lightworks because they have stuff that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise, and also knowledge that is, you know, quite niche. But we work on a neighbourhood commission budget of around 5,000 to 6,000. But that's not just 5,000 to 6,000 to put this on for 4 nights. That's 5,000 to 6,000 to have a running programme of an artist working, the poet in resident working, the animator working, the illustrator working. So there's kind of a lot within that. But yeah, around 5,000 to 6,000.
I was going to add to that. I don't know whether I'm not giving away trade secret. I mean, basically, the festivals in the network are working with, you know, different budgets. Just say the European budgets, European festivals we go to are spending millions. We haven't got millions. I just put it in that context. Much less than, not even, anywhere near that amount of money. So, but everybody works with it. And again, it's all about partnership, to be honest, in the different towns and cities as well, or whether it's business being partners or you know, asking a favour. We certainly, in Blackpool, will ask a lot of favours of the Illuminations team, and they are very generous in their time and expertise. And I know they are to other network partners where they can be as well. So anybody else got any other questions? Question. So the question from the floor is, what have we learnt from all our different experiences of putting on light festivals, and what would we do differently going forward? Sorry? What would we keep? What would we not? Yeah, go there again. Anybody want to take that one? I was going to say Anna, but I can see you're thinking.
I'll pass this on to you, but I wrote 80,000 words about what I'd learned, so I probably shouldn't answer.
So maybe people should read that and they'll get a good, yeah. So they can get that online, can't they, I think, or you said, yeah, so,
I'll only have like 3 words, though. I won't have 8,000. So actually we use Light Up Lancaster regularly as a place to just test new work, partly because something about the people in Lancaster, they really come out for this festival, they really engage in the festival, so especially when we're doing community engagement, we just know that we've got an audience here who want to engage in art. So this is such a good testing ground for us. We learn something new every time. It's really hard to like keep track of everything that we've learned. We've learned that scaffolding costs a hell of a lot. So on the costs, we're always trying to find ways that we could reduce scaffolding costs, particularly when we're putting projectors in places, and the team here help us with that a lot. And that's something that we kind of learn from going forward, of how to cost up our artworks. We always learn something new about how people interact with artworks and how they learn to interact with our artworks. particularly in the interactive projection pieces. We see a hell of a lot of kids teaching adults how to use the artwork, because again, kids just throw themselves into it and adults always step back. So we sort of learn how much hand-holding we need to do for audiences. And frequently we learn actually that that's not a lot of hand-holding, because the kids will do it for us. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just picking stuff out of my brain. This is a very scattered place up there as well. And we always learn that we should be more organized than we are being. We should, you know, do more and more spreadsheets and more lists. So if you are yourself approaching an artwork, try and tally up everything that you need in that artwork, cost up everything that you need in that artwork, and work out how to make it as smooth as possible for the audience, because actually that's the thing that matters the most, is that the audience have a really positive experience doing it. And yeah, spreadsheets help a hell of a lot with that. And also asking everyone around you for help. I think that was the first thing we ever learnt, was when you're making art, just ask everyone around you about the best way to do it, and the community will hold you through it. Yeah, that's my learnings.
That was a great thing. I was just going to add, always surround yourself with the can-do people as well. That's what I've learned over the years on a whole range of projects. Anybody else? Lauren? Yeah. So the question is that whole thing of the scale of festivals, or the impact that it's having, as in it's drawing so many people, audiences are growing. How do you get that balance, that you can have artist work that is maybe more a smaller intimate moment, or an interactive piece where it can cope with the level of numbers of people coming to a festival? I suppose, yeah, we are the victims of our own success to a certain extent. Does anybody want to answer that one? Or
we're often, you know, we're approaching different festivals, and I think the one consideration that a lot of festivals have is how these crowds affect how the artwork is seen. So, for example, the Matter of the Heart, which is the boxes, frequently can't go to quite a few festivals because of the level of crowds. And people, you know, some of those festivals will say, like, well, you know, people won't see it as they walk past it, because it's quite an intimate one where you have to like peer at the boxes. So there's a sort of height consideration there, I guess, whereas with the waterfall or with the sky, like large scale projections can be seen from far away and can be seen by a lot of people. So there sometimes are considerations on what festivals to approach for what in terms of mass audiences.
I was going to say that's quite a good time to wind up, because we're sort of near the end of our time, but also it was just an ideal moment talking about that particular point that Light Up Lancaster this time round has got some installations up in our beautiful Williamson Park. So a chance to stroll up the hill, get your exercise. I do it regularly because I live here. It's a great one, and you'll see all the twinkling lights and also the fireworks across Morecambe Bay, actually. So as well as beautiful artworks. So that's one approach. Again, I suppose I know a few of our colleagues with light festivals are working in different locations, as it were, to just spread the numbers of hungry audiences that want to engage out a bit, so the flow of people works. So I just want to say a big thank you to all my lovely panel members with all their experience that they've shared with us this afternoon. Thank you everybody for coming along. So this is it's recorded, so you can go back and watch it again if you want to. But there's lots of other spotlight talks as well for Light Up the North. So we've got a really great impact report funded by the Arts Council. We do like their investment. They're very, very helpful to us, which tells you all about light festivals and what we've been doing and how it has impacted. So it's a good read. You can find it on our brilliant website. Lots of stuff on our website, lightupthenorth.com. I think that's, chance to say goodbye now. So enjoy the festival tonight and enjoy Durham next week. And then there's Wigan, and then there's Salford with Lightwaves. So lots more, and Middlesbrough. There's lots more to come over this autumn. So enjoy the festivals.